So the Varangians were ancient Scandinavian people. Scandinavians means Vikings. So let's take a look at the map. Who were the Vikings? Who were the Varangians? So we are here in India right now. Yes, this is India. Let me go back westwards so that we can see what Scandinavia is. So Scandinavia essentially is three countries: Denmark, Norway, Sweden. You could also include Finland and Iceland to some extent, but mostly Scandinavia is Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. So the people from this region were called the Vikings about 1,000 or so years ago. The Viking age was between the 8th centuries and the 11th centuries. This is the age of Viking expansion, when they were very much prominent, and they invaded and raided and conquered large territories across Europe. So the Varangians were one branch of these Vikings. Okay, they were called Varyag in the Slavic world, and one branch of these Varangians settled in a place called Novgorod in the region of Russia. Where is Novgorod? It's somewhere in this region. Okay, so these guys were called the the Kievan Rus. There was a guy called Oleg, Prince Oleg. He conquered Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine today, and he established the Kievan Rus state. So the original Rus were actually Vikings. They were called the Kievan Rus. These Vikings conquered Kiev. They settled this region. They established the Kievan Rus state. And the first, before Oleg, it was a guy called Rurik, a Viking called Rurik, who settled in Novgorod. And then Oleg settled in Kiev. So that's how the expansion of these guys happened. And they established the Kievan Rus state. And they essentially controlled a great deal of the trade routes in Europe across the river Volga and other rivers. And this trade was between the European Christian world and the Islamic world, which was centered in Baghdad at the time. So they indulged in piracy, they indulged in trade, they indulged in raiding. They even had contacts with the Byzantine Empire, which was centered around Constantinople, present day Istanbul. Some of them even served as the bodyguards of the Byzantine Empire. So they were very adventurous people. They traveled everywhere. They traded with various countries. In Baghdad, they traded even with Indians. So they had contacts even with India at the time. Some Vikings may possibly even have traveled to India. If they did, we have lost the records of that. So Baghdad is over here in Iraq. So that's what these Varangians were. So eventually, with the decline of the Viking age, the Rus, these guys, they were slowly Christianized in the 10th century, and by the 11th century, by the end of the 11th century, they were assimilated among the larger Slavic population of the region that is now Russia, Ukraine, etc., Belarus, and they became Christianized and they became assimilated into the Slavic culture. So today, if we look at Russia, it's a Slavic land. The people are all of Slavic culture, Slavic extraction. The culture is fully Slavic. There is no trace of Scandinavian culture, Viking culture. And yet the name Rus, Russia, comes from the Kievan Rus, who were originally Vikings. So it's a very interesting history. That is essentially the birth of Russia that we are witnessing here. The arrival of the Kievan Rus and the formation of the Kievan Rus state by the Varangians. So they were called Varangians by various people. They were called Varyag by the Russians. And that's a very interesting story. So that is, in a sense, the story of the birth of the Russian nation, of the Rus nation. And it is a very tumultuous history. Lots of things happen later, but that how essentially is how it happened. That is essentially the birth of this nation, or at least the ethnicity, who call themselves Rus.